So today we are finishing chapter 2. We are looking at section 2.5, if-then statements and deductive reasoning. It'll feel almost more like an English class today, to be honest with you. But I really like this stuff. It's something I enjoy. It's the beginning of logic. It's the beginning of proofs. It's the beginning of a lot of really cool stuff. But it starts out with if-then statements. It's not hard, no. So we're going to do this today. We will review the next 2 days, and then we'll take a test, and then do a little algebra equations review. Next week, we will start right in on chapter 3, so get ready for that. All right, so if-then statements. Chill. An if-then statement has 2 parts. The if part contains the hypothesis. You should be writing contains the hypothesis in your notes. The then part contains the conclusion. So, if-then statement. There's an if, followed by some information. There's a then, followed by some information. The part after the if is called the hypothesis. The part after the then is called the conclusion, which makes sense because the conclusion is the final part. So that's always how I remember this. Conclusion is always at the end of a story. It's at the end of an if-then statement as well. Any questions so far? Here is an example. If the team wins the semifinal, then the team will play in the championship. So the part that is the hypothesis is the part that comes right after the word if. The then is the part that comes the conclusion is the part that comes right after the then. Any questions? So this is actually flip-flopped of what I just did. The directions here say to circle the hypothesis and underline the conclusion. Now, the word if and the word then are not part of the hypothesis or the conclusion. It's sort of like, I always think of it as like the skeleton of the, like if blank, comma, then blank, period. If and then aren't anything important. They're just always sort of there. Is there an issue on the other side of the room?
Yeah.
What's going on?
I don't know what that means.
So, what you did on the last slide, you had underlined the hypothesis.
Yes, that's why I just said I had. Yeah, so we just discussed that. Okay, so we're gonna circle the hypothesis. The hypothesis is what?
The first part of the sentence.
If I pass the driver's test.
Not if I pass the driver's test.
If.
No. I passed the driver's test. That's what we were just discussing. The if is not part of it. We're going to underline the conclusion. What's the conclusion?
I'll get my license.
I will get my license. Questions? I will miss school if I sleep through my alarm. This one's kind of tricky.
Hypothesis is I sleep through my alarm.
The hypothesis is I sleep through my alarm because it comes right after the word if. The conclusion is I will be late for school. You guys need to stop talking. So this actually doesn't have the word then in it. So if you want to rewrite it first, then circle and underline, you can. But focus in on one of the key words. If there's an if or a then, you can sort of tell what the rest of the sentence is leading us to. Questions? All right, this is where we're going to rewrite them. So sometimes you have to do both. Sometimes you're just underlining and circling. Every duck on the pond is hungry. So we have an if, then we fill it in. Then there's a comma, then there's a then, and we fill that part in. That's what each of these should look like when you're done. Every duck on the pond is hungry.
Every duck on the pond is hungry.
I'm not a dog.
So we can add on something, or, huh?
So we just putting in,
If
if
every duck on the
and nothing
pond is
in.
hungry, then they gonna have.
No.
So how you gonna put
If-
Every duck on the pond.
You gotta add something to that.
If what? What are we looking at?
If every duck on the pond is hungry, then.
No.
Blah, blah, blah.
You're
No, sometimes you gotta
If the ducks have
break
no
stuff
food,
up,
then
and then you gotta.
no. You guys are trying to write a whole story. This is all the information we have.
okay, let's see.
How are we gonna know if a duck's hungry?
If every duck is hungry.
If they're on the pond. So if
Every duck.
It's on the pond.
I'm gonna leave out the word every, it doesn't really sound. So if a duck is on the pond, that would include every duck on the pond, right? So if a duck is on the pond, then that duck is hungry.
So we say that.
Add it on my back.
Yes, you're not adding anything to the story. This is the whole story. Okay? We don't know why they're hungry. We don't know what they're going to do next. But I can tell that a duck is hungry because it's on the pond. So if I see a duck on the pond, if a duck is on the pond, then I can conclude that that duck is hungry.
What if they just want full snow?
This next one says, I will buy the CD if it costs less than $15. Yes.
If it costs less than $15, then I will buy the CD.
Good. So I'm going to change the wording a little bit. He said, if it costs less than $15, then I will buy the CD. Usually we don't use it unless we've established what we're talking about. So I switched your pronouns a little bit. If the CD costs less than $15, then I will buy it. So instead of it in the beginning and the CD in the end, I sort of switched it. But yes, absolutely correct. Questions? All right, number 5. An angle is obtuse if its measure is 170 degrees.
If it's measured,
What were you going to say?
Then
Yeah, you guys are all, a few of you are saying the same thing. If the measure of an angle is 170 degrees, then it is an obtuse angle. Now, if your wording is slightly different, if you left off an A or an an or something like that, it's not the end of the world. But this is the basics of the sentence. If the measure of an angle is 170 degrees, then it is an obtuse angle.
If they're a teacher at Ocean Spring High School, then they've taught for at least 2 years.
Yep, very good. So, if a teacher teaches at Ocean Springs High School, then they have taught for at least 2 years. This is one where I'll see people switch it around. Think about, like, is every single teacher in the whole world who's taught more than 2 years at Ocean Springs High School? Or is every single teacher at Ocean Springs High School been teaching for more than 2 years? So you can sort of catch yourself if you're doing it in the wrong order, okay? I've been teaching for 11 years. I do not teach at Ocean Springs High School. So clearly you can't flip-flop them. What are your questions? This is the definition of deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning uses facts, definitions, accepted properties, and laws of logic to make a logical argument. So we're going to discuss the laws of logic, do a little deductive reasoning, and then you guys can have your homework. Yeah. What can you conclude from the following true statement? If you are late for your interview, you will probably not be offered the job. You are late for your interview. What can you conclude?
You'll probably not be offered the job.
You're probably not going to be offered the job. Okay, very good. So, What you just used is called the law of detachment. It basically says that if the if part happens, the then part is going to happen. So, if you are late for your interview, you're not going to get the job. Well, you're late for the interview. So now we're concluding the end of the original statement. You are not getting the job. Okay? Any questions? That's it. So I thought you guys had to like the law of detachment, but we just used it. That's fun. All right. You guys good? Any questions?
No.
All right. You have finished chapter 2. Woo-woo.